Welcome to the Truth Seeker's Guide, an uplifting podcast that explores the pursuit of truth through various disciplines such as history, spirituality, religion, philosophy, inner work, and science. We're going to jump right into part 2 of last week's episode. How is the gut connected to our mood and anxiety levels? I know you explained a little bit about that, but can you tell us a little more?
We've to kind of expand a little bit on the research from the Psychobiotic Revolution authors. So Dinan and Cyan have been trailblazers in studying the bacteria in the gut and how they can affect our moods. And the way we used to treat the gut was kind of just take as many probiotics as you can and hope for the best. It was kind of like 40 billion every single day, 16 strains, just kind of flooding the system, because we do know that more microbial diversity tends to be better. Mm-hmm. But these researchers have found that there are bacteria that have a specific zone of genius. Mm. And so some bacteria we found are really good at helping to regulate cortisol metabolism. Mm. Some bacteria help us increase GABA. Other bacteria help us regulate serotonin. So now we could get into precision medicine, gotcha, where if we look at someone's symptoms and we look at methylation testing, for example, and it's like, oh, okay, we see that this person isn't methylating very well. Therefore, we're seeing low metabolites of serotonin. We want to support the body in making serotonin. We're going to give more of this bacteria that's good at that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, instead of having to take all of the things, like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, you can take less is more. Oftentimes, less is more. So the gut has a lot to say. Another example of the gut is if you have any women in your life, you may notice that sometimes their moods can change depending on where they are in their hormone cycle. Mm-hmm. And there's a bacteria that can grow in the gut in men or women that's called Clostridia. Clostridia has a zone of genius of reabsorbing estrogen. So our body, we absorb estrogen and then we put it through the gut, through the liver to detox it, and we eliminate it. But if we have a lot of Clostridia, that bacteria is like, we like estrogen, we're going to reabsorb it. Yeah. And so then these women have estrogen dominant symptoms and their doctors are like, I don't know, take some birth control or hormone replacement therapy. But it really could be at their gut. The other thing that Clostridia can do is it can block dopamine from getting broken down into adrenaline. Okay. So then you have all of these people with high dopamine causing anxiety and panic, but no adrenaline giving them energy. So they feel like exhausted and burned out and foggy, but panicky and anxious at the same time. So that's like a pro gut bug versus a con gut bug.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always been a little sensitive in my gut, I assume, because for a long time I was just very sensitive to dairy, to fried food, maybe very processed food and things. My stomach didn't really suit well. And one day someone recommended a probiotic, right? So I started taking probiotics. And when I took the probiotic, it really was life-changing because I felt like I can eat normal again and I can function without having any pain or any problems. And it worked wonders I took it every day actually for a long time. I haven't taken a probiotic in years only because I've gone into, I'm not sure if you know about this, but I traded it for a high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil. I don't know if you know what I mean by high polyphenols, but
yeah, I love.
Yeah. So I take about a tablespoon every morning now, of the high polyphenol olive oil, extra virgin olive oils. And, it really has replaced the probiotic. I don't need the probiotic anymore. It coats my stomach enough. In fact, I think it's gotten me used to even the oils itself because I'm taking oil every day where like the fried foods or high oily foods or greasy foods don't affect me like they used to. And so yeah, and of course I do the ginger bug, which has probiotics because I'm fermentation process, which helps my gut. But more than anything, it's been the olive oil that has really changed. and I know it has a bunch of other benefits that I'm told that it has, but what I could see clearly that it's helping me with is that, you know, the probiotic for the stomach. Do you know anything about that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's all brilliant. And I love that because this is an example of how the body can function when we give it what it needs. And this is the difference between healing and palliative care. So if somebody has gas and bloating in their stomach, and I give them Prilosec, which is a proton pump inhibitor. Really, that it says on the label we shouldn't give it for more than a week. I think maybe it even says no more than 5 or 6 days. And yet most people that I come in contact with have been taking their reflux medication for years, right? And they don't have reflux, they don't have gas and bloating anymore, but the minute that they try to taper off of that or stop it, the symptoms come back. So we know it's palliative.
Gotcha.
But we can do that with natural remedies too. Is sometimes people will say, well, instead of taking aspirin for my headaches, I'm just going to take wobenzyme for my headaches. But if I stop the wobenzyme, it all comes back. What means that natural supplement isn't treating the root cause. Versus what you're describing is that you increased your gut microbial diversity. So now you have your whole dream team on board, and you're just feeding them things that keep them happy, like your starters, right? You give it what it wants, you keep it alive, you keep it happy. So now you have your resident bacteria in there, and you're just feeding them the polyphenol extra virgin olive oil, fat, nutrients, prebiotic food. And then for those who are listening, I love everything you're doing, and I would make sure that you're also getting fiber in there, because your healthy, happy bacteria love fiber, and they love butyrate. Butyrate heals the gut. So like what you're doing is like the perfect healthy gut solution for many of us.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. And I actually started doing less simple carbs, higher protein. And then I realized that my body, I was still perfectly having normal bowel movements and everything, but then it started slowing down a little bit, and I realized that my missing piece of the puzzle was what you just mentioned, fiber. And once I started realizing that, I started incorporating a lot more fiber in my diet, whether it would be kiwis in the morning and then vegetables, and sometimes I'll just make like a green juice where I'll just stick it with a bunch of spinach and pineapple and add different things in there. But that you're right. That's huge, and I didn't realize actually how important fiber was, but it has stabilized everything for me. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who are listening, if they were like, "Well, what is one thing that I can change after listening to this whole conversation? If I only have the bandwidth to change one thing," I would probably tell any standard American to just add fiber to your diet. Like, eat a kiwi and don't peel the kiwi, eat the fuzzy part, or eat the spinach.
I buy the gold kiwi so I can eat the skin. I love the gold kiwis.
Yeah, like I had a peach yesterday. It's the season. I love the fuzzy skin. It's so good. So increase fiber, whole grains, green veggies, apples, things that grow from the earth, as opposed to things that have been processed. So, like you said, like limiting cookies and crackers and white pasta and white rice, and eating the more complex stuff that you get at the crunchy grocery store.
Exactly. Awesome. And what are psychobiotics and how can they help with panic?
Yeah, the psychobiotics, these are the bacteria that have been specifically isolated to help our brain and nervous system. So the psycho is the psychology, the brain and the nervous system, and the biotic refers to the particular bacteria. So one of them is Lactobacillus rhamnosus, for example, and that particular bacteria.
Lactobacillus, I'm sorry, but that is actually the one that ginger bug creates. That's it right there. I was trying to think of that word, but that's the Lactobacillus. That's it.
See it? It's all coming together.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So lactobacillus. So it's kind of like, it's like a dog, right? So we have like Great Danes, and we have Cavalier King Charles, we have poodles, we have all of the dogs. And so lactobacillus is like the metaphor for like a dog. And then rhamnosus may be the metaphor for a chihuahua. It's a specific strain of the lactobacillus bacteria. And we want all sorts of strains. And the rhamnosus in particular is a psychobiotic that uses the vagus nerve to talk to the brain. In fact, they did this study where they severed the vagus nerve in rats, and that bacteria didn't work anymore to calm the brain and to help make GABA and balance cortisol. So it's kind of interesting how these things all work together, and we got to support all of it.
Yeah. No, I'm with that. I mean, especially because I feel like nature and everything in nature, whether it comes to our body or plants or anything, it shows us this balance, this homeostasis of how things need to work together all as a whole for it to be in the right place and to produce life, sustainable life. Yeah. Awesome.
And isn't that what mushrooms do and fungus does?
Yeah.
It's like you see them, they like cover the floor of woods, and they have these really complicated networks.
Don't even get me started on the mycelium is what you're speaking about, right?
Yeah.
The network.
Yeah.
I read a lot of the stuff and looked into a lot of Paul Stamets actually spoke a lot about that.
Yeah.
But the mycelium is the network under the ground, which is what interested me the most because mushrooms, being that fungi is a whole different species of plant. It's not even plants. It's a whole different species in itself, which is beautiful to understand how incredible that works, because not only does it function as almost like nerve or like thinking of the planet, and it filters and the word is not filters. It cleans the planet, so like it'll just clean anything that it's not useful, and it'll make it useful. It also communicates with the mycelium, like you said, from one tree to another, and the fungi will actually help the communication and say, okay, you need this nutrient, we're going to transfer it to that plant, and from this nutrient, and we'll just tax you a little something on the way. But it's beautiful to see that the fungi also functions almost like our brain in a way, so it's like, and not only that, I think in neuroscience it's said that once we think a thought repeatedly and it becomes a habit and so on, after a certain time, it almost develops like a mushroom shape in your mind. In your brain, which is very interesting because to me that all correlates, which is why I got into the fungi, to help my brain come back to life. Let's say, but that's awesome. Yeah,
we call this the doctrine of signatures in medicine, and so it's like you look at a walnut and it looks like a brain, and walnuts are good for the brain.
Exactly.
You look at a tomato and you cut it in half and it looks like the atria and the ventricles of the heart. And
the heart.
Tomatoes have lycopene, which are great for your heart. Yeah. And cinnamon is like the color of our liver, and cinnamon is so good for the liver. So nature, as you're saying, it's giving us clues and hints. Yeah. It's just a matter of us being the Sherlock Holmes to figure out what those clues are telling us we could use them for healing.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, that's interesting. Like I said, we could probably go in a whole different segment just on fungi and the effects and everything else. But for someone listening right now, what are a few gut-friendly practices or foods, since we're speaking about that now, that they can add today other than fiber? I know you're saying fiber is the number one, but what other foods can we add?
I would add something that is fiber-based, as you said, is number one. And then number two, once you have good bacteria in your body, like what you did, is then I would add good prebiotics. But be mindful to not add...
What are prebiotics?
Prebiotics are foods and things that feed the bacteria in your gut. And so if you look at the bottle on the back of like a probiotic supplement, and it may say prebiotic and probiotic supplement, like fructooligosaccharides, it'll say FOS. Mm-hmm. So that's food for bacteria. But you want to do that once you have good bacteria, because just imagine if you have a bunch of pathogenic bacteria and you're feeding them, they're just going to be happy as clams and you're going to be miserable. So start with the fiber and then add in the prebiotics once you feel like your gut's more on track. And then I would add oils. Oils, and you're doing this, oils. Every single cell in our body has a phospholipid bilayer. And what that means is it has a fatty matrix around it. It's squishy, and it looks like little balloons with strings, or little sperms, if you will, right? And the oil nourishes that, and we want to have balances in the right oils. And so
and to be clear with people, good oils, not bad oils.
Good oils. Yes, 3s, 6s, and 9s. And so getting in your omega-3 fatty acids from algae or fish oil. I love that you're doing the polyphenol, the high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil, flaxseed oils, chia seeds.
Avocado.
So, I mean, really, truly, avocado oil. I put that on my salads. It has a high flash point, so it's better for cooking.
What I realized has helped me with avocados is I actually freeze it in little pieces, so that way they don't go bad when they're perfect. And then I just put them in my green juice, and it's perfect for that oil.
That's brilliant. That's a good hack. So does it come out? Is it brown when it comes out of the freezer?
No, not at all.
Or is it green?
Green. So basically, you get it at it's when it's I'm losing the word. When it's ready.
Not ripe.
When it's ripe. There you go. Okay. I don't know why I lost the word right there for a second. But anyways, what I do is I cut it into little squares so I can measure it easier, what I'm going to put in. And then I lay it out on a sheet, put it in the freezer for about an hour. Then once they separate, then you put them in a bag, and then that way they don't clump together and become one cube. And then it's just easy to maintain. And that way you don't have to worry, because, I'm sure people are aware that you buy avocado, you buy a lot of it, and you don't use it in the right time, you're going to lose all your avocados so it's very difficult to keep them good.
That's genius. I'm going to do that. I love avocados, but I feel like it has like a 1 day window.
I know. And I hated that because I would buy them, and then when I wanted them, they were bad. And so I started doing that, and it's awesome. And can you also maybe touch on why you would not advise, I assume, for bad oils like seed oils? Why are they so bad for people instead of the good oils?
Oftentimes they are hydrogenated, and so hydrogenation, it's kind of like you have these really fluidy, for those who are listening, I'm kind of holding my hands up and making a circle and then doing this like jiggly gesture, right? You want your cell layers to be nice and fluidy. And when we hydrogenate oils, which can happen in the processing of seed oils, is that it introduces oil to that phospholipid bilayer around the cell, and it just kind of gets stuck in there. And it doesn't send information well. The cell doesn't work as well. These are trans fats. And so when you're looking at the label, the Food and Drug Administration can allow their 0.5 grams of trans fats in a food. Forgive me if it's grams. Now I'm doubting it. It could be milligrams or grams. I know there's a big difference, but I know one of your listeners will find it. Yeah. And they can be off in their measurements by that much, and it can say there's no trans fats in it. But a better way for you to look at it is just, is it seed oil? And try to avoid seed oil, because it's going to be more inflammatory, and inflammation by and large is the number one cause of disease, especially in the United States. And you might think you're not getting any trans fats, but you really are. The other thing is that most of us aren't balancing our seed oils with omega-3 fatty acids. And so we have all this LDL going up, but we're not balancing it on the teeter-totter with LDL. So it's all about, like you said, ratios. And because obviously, you have extra virgin olive oil with high polyphenols that is it causes it's an anti-inflammatory oil, but then you have a seed oil that gives you inflammation. So clearly, there's a big difference there. Yeah. I love that you said avocado. I feel like avocado oil, coconut, but in balanced amounts and good ratios. And just stay away from the seeds and do the avocado, do the olive, do the coconut, I'm not even opposed. I'm mostly plant-based, but if someone's like, it's going to be lard or seed oil, then if you know a good farmer and you know that the animals have been treated well and that there's good sustainable practices, lard's better than seed oils for some people. Oh, yeah? Nice. Yeah, I know. It's interesting. It is. And
All right, so let's move into hormones and anxiety. As far as how do hormones like cortisol and adrenaline fuel anxiety or panic attacks?
Cortisol is that hormone that comes from the adrenal glands that helps you get activated and excited. So imagine Susie's in the woods gathering berries, and there's a tiger in the woods, and the tiger growls. And Susie is able to get that oomph, that fight, flight, freeze, that get up and go, that burst of cortisol, that burst of adrenaline, so she can get away to safety. Mm-hmm. She was able to reproduce, and now Susie's your ancestor. We'll say Tina didn't have a robust endocrine system. She wasn't able to release the cortisol, or she wasn't able to release as much adrenaline, so she wasn't able to detect as quickly and acutely the growl of the tiger in the woods, and so the tiger had her for lunch, right? So we need these fight, flight, freeze hormones in order to be excited, to have our heart rate speed up when we need to run on a treadmill or go for a walk, or when we get excited or when we're in danger. The problem is that if the body thinks that there's a tiger running after you when really you're just driving down the interstate, and that's anxiety, is when we have these very natural biological responses out of context of actual danger. And so these are those adaptive loops that get stuck. It's kind of like if you live in, let's say you live in Ontario in the winter and it's really cold. You adapt to that cold by putting on a coat, and that coat protects you. But then you're like, screw this, I'm going to move to Mexico. I'm going to live in Mexico. Now you're there and it's summer and you have a coat on. That adaptation that was life-saving for you is now going to make you overheat. It's going to be really, really very dangerous, right? So that's the same with cortisol. Is yes, we need cortisol. Cortisol is good. We don't want to suppress cortisol. Right. We want to balance it. So when we're in Ontario visiting people, we can put a coat on. When we go to Mexico, we can take the coat off.
Okay, awesome. And, there you go. And what role does the thyroid play in the anxiety symptoms?
This is so important, and I'm really glad that you asked it. I write about Charlotte in the book, and this really sticks out to me because I see this all the time, where Charlotte came to me, and she was 6 months postpartum, and she was losing a ton of weight. She was having a ton of insomnia, and she was really anxious. I had a lot of heart palpitations. She told me she'd gone to her doctor, and her doctor was like, lucky you, you're losing the baby weight. Take a Xanax if you need it for an emergency. Things will even out. Postpartum hormones are a bummer. Yeah. So she didn't want to take a benzo, and she's feeling really badly. So she comes to me, and so we look at her symptoms. So she has the heart palpitations. She has the weight loss. She has the anxiety. She's also heat intolerant. So it was cold outside, and she walked, I'm in Michigan right now, and this was in the winter, and she walked up in shorts. Her coat was open. She was wearing like a light jacket. And so she's heat intolerant. And so I could say, oh, you're anxious. The standard of care is to give you an antidepressant or a Xanax, which happened to you and I, and had happened to her. But when we look at the symptoms like Sherlock Holmes, and we get really curious and we go deeper and we say, well, why is that happening? Why is the body giving her all of these symptoms? The symptoms aren't the problems. The symptoms are the clues, right? Yeah. And a root cause of that could be thyroid. So I tested her thyroid, which is a basic, easy test your doctor should run every single year, and your insurance will cover. And she had really, really high thyroid hormone. It turns out she had Graves' thyroid. And Graves' thyroid, if unchecked, can be lethal. And women who are in the postpartum age are at a higher risk for that. And so when it comes to anxiety, is always ask your doctor to do basic blood work. Like, we aren't talking about anything crazy. We're not talking about thousands of dollars in functional testing. We're talking about just looking at the basics. Rule out the basics. Is your sugar and insulin stable? Are you crashing? I see this a lot. People are crashing their sugars. Or is your thyroid out of balance? Is your cortisol out of balance? Is your liver inflamed? What's going on with your immune system? We want to really look at just our overall general hormonal and immune system markers because it could be so easy to correct that, and then you don't end up years down the road with an unchecked thyroid.
Okay, great. And can stress actually rewire the body into craving chaos?
Yeah. Yeah, we lean into what's familiar. Have you ever heard someone say the devil we know is better than the devil we don't?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I see this, and the other quote that comes to mind is, all the world's a stage and we're merely actors. And the brain and the nervous system crave reliability. They crave predictability. And we go into feedback loops that help us maintain that. So if I grew up in a household, or you grew up in a household, where if there was a loud banging outside, that could mean gunfire, then as an adult, if you hear banging outside, if that adaptation is still a part of your existence, you may automatically think that there's danger outside and experience that arousal response, when it could be a car backfiring. We see this a lot with veterans. And it can feel very dangerous to not react in a state of fear, because the body, the brain, doesn't care about your well-being. It cares about your safety. And so we will lean into, by habit, by reliability, into something that is familiar and predictable and reliable, because we know how to respond to that, instead of doing something different. And that's why for so many of us, change is hard. It's so much more manageable sometimes for us to take something sedating in the beginning. And for you, if that's where you are listening to this podcast, is that's okay. Is maybe you need the Xanax for a little bit and your doctor agrees, or maybe you need the Zoloft, but keep doing the work and start noticing, are there habits or people in my life, or am I on social media and looking at pages that are stressing me out? What could be causing me to lean into a pattern that's keeping me where I don't want to be? And then how can you systematically start to reduce that and step out of that? Because it's going to be hard at first.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard. The dopamine's going to crash, the adrenaline's going to go up, but that would be an obstacle to cure. So actually, that's a really intuitive question, sir.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, and it's about getting to the root of the problem instead of just covering it up, because it's always easier. Like I kind of use this analogy in the book I'm writing, but it's like let's say you have like a hedge, a bush, and then you got vines growing in them, where weed vines, and you see them on the outside and you pull them off, to try to help the plant. Eventually the plant still dies and you wonder why, and because the problem wasn't, you can take off the things from what you see with the easy access and the things that are visually there on the outside. But the reality is the problem isn't on the outside as much as it is on the inside. So basically when you realize that it's not just getting them off the top, but you have to find it from the root and pull it from the root, because what's happening is in the root system, those vines are robbing the plant of all its nutrients. So underground, and that's what's causing it to eventually die, and slowly, slower than it would if it got stronger, of course, what you're doing. So you're just kind of like fixing what you see on the surface, but eventually it might slow down the process, but eventually the same outcome will happen if you don't get to the root, basically,
I love that. And that's such a good way to remember root cause medicine, is asking yourself, is there anything deeper? Like, why? Always ask why. Always ask why. Why does this keep happening? Why does this keep coming back? What's going on? What's at the root? Yeah. And until you address what's at the root, it's palliative. You're just going to be suppressing it, which at times is good.
Right,
but
right. Because it's not like it doesn't.
You got your audience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it's not helping. It's helping. It's just not going to solve the problem. It'll slow it down.
And that's what your audience wants. Yeah. They're truth seekers. They want to solve the problem.
Solve the problem from the source. But
yes.
All right. So, what daily rhythms or simple lifestyle changes can help bring hormones back into balance?
Ooh, daily rhythms to bring hormones back into balance. Well, the first thing is starting your day on the right foot. So instead of starting your day, opening your phone and stimulating your brain with all of this information and all of this data, which floods your salience network, stimulates your amygdala, the emotional brain, to think we're in danger and send this cortisol that starts you out with a spike of blood sugar and all of this stress and immune suppression and on and on and on, right? Mm-hmm. That affects your hormones and everything. Is to start your day, when you wake up, immediately get out of bed, drink a full glass of water. In Ayurveda, we would say drink room temperature water, maybe even add a little bit of lemon, maybe some ginger, drink something room temperature, and then stretch your body and put your face in the sun. So you're shutting down melatonin production, you're supporting serotonin production, you're supporting wakefulness, mental clarity, you're moving your body, you're hydrating all of those cells that have been just waiting for a drink of water while you were sleeping. We're hydrating them, filling them up. And you're looking at the sun and you're connecting with the earth. And maybe you're even stretching and rolling, maybe doing a nidra practice, a yoga nidra, where you do long, gentle stretches. And then you start your day. And these are how some of the most influential people in this world start their days. They don't look at their phones. They don't look at their email. They hydrate, they shower, they have a bowel movement, they move their body, they get outside. And then we break our fast. And I like to intermittent fast. I think it's good for my body. I recommend it for some people, not others. Intermittent fasting is where we don't eat anything for 16 hours. And when we say breakfast, it doesn't mean that you eat at 8 a.m. It's when we break our fast. And so think about all your cells are ready and they're going to really grab a hold of that first thing you give them because they've been waiting. It's like when I have a dog and I have a little puppy over here, she's sleeping. And when I get out a biscuit, she's like salivating. She's like, give me the biscuit. She's like, I'm waiting. So our cells are like that. So the first thing you feed them is going to make a huge difference on the rest of your day. So I take my ESS60, I take liposomal glutathione, I take some lion's mane, and then I eat a really good protein-rich, fat-rich breakfast with greens. Mm-hmm. And then we want to have rhythmic variation throughout our day. And so, for example, you and I have been having this conversation and we've been facing forward. And what can happen in the brain and the body when we face forward for a long time is if we're not moving and engaging, if we're like just typing on our computers where we have a computer-based job, is that the body is in almost a freeze position, like a deer in headlights, right? Mm-hmm. It's in a freeze position. And so then we may notice we start to get activated. We get less heart rate variability. When our heart rate variability is down and we're not like yoga loosey-goosey and adaptive, we get more rigid, we get more stress, inflammation, etc. So periodically throughout the day, an easy hack for that is to just rotate your head and your eyes to each side. So you rotate your head and your eyes over your left shoulder. You rotate your head and your eyes over your right shoulder. You look forward, and then you look at something across the room, focus far, and then focus close. And then that can reset that feedback loop that's going into the brain and nervous system that says stress, 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 stress. And that can all create a domino effect into your hormones, gut, etc.
And I'm glad you mentioned intermediate fasting because I've gotten into that a lot. And maybe not necessarily counting the hours, but what I've been doing is I wake up in the morning and I have water, sometimes a little lemon stuff in it, but mostly I have my extra virgin olive oil in the morning. And then I have coffee later on, but sometimes I don't eat anything till anywhere between 2 to 5 o'clock. Like I mean, not breakfast, not anything. And again, like you said, it's not for everyone. And I think everyone has to consult someone professionally before maybe doing it because it's not for everyone. But for me, I realized it did help me because I like to stay active and energetic and focused for most of my day. And so when I feel like my day is done with the important productive things I need to do, then I have my big meal and I try to fill it with nutrients and balance it out with fiber and things like that. But I have a big meal and I feel great. I mean, I feel better than before. I have more energy, more focus throughout the day. In the beginning, like anyone I can imagine listening, yes, in the beginning, your body is so habitual. It has such a great memory that if you eat at a certain time every day, and you then the next day around that exact time, I assume your gut is producing all these acids and things that it needs to prepare itself for that meal. And so if you're not giving it the food, then clearly you're not going to feel great, in the beginning of this process. But by understanding that, and then maybe just drinking water and some lemon water and things during that process to change that habit, I think it's not bad for me. I mean, I'm not a professional, so I'm asking you, but it has been working for me to give me the energy I need, and I don't feel like I'm lacking nutrients or energy. Now, what I do advise is that there are moments, for example, that I do wake up a little hungrier than usual, right? And so I do listen to my body, so that's different. So, like, for example, if I wake up really hungry, then I know that I'm going to have maybe breakfast around 11 o'clock, you know what I mean? Or 10:30, or maybe not as late as I usually do it. And then I'll have some eggs and some different things. And I just listen to my body. And I feel like when I do that, I feel perfectly fine. And I feel it's been helping me also to maintain proper weight, balance, everything, without me having to feel like before I was eating a heavy breakfast and lunch and then dinner and snacking in between all of these. And I felt like that was, now looking back, a lot of food I was taking. So what are your thoughts on that?
One of the most powerful things we could do for longevity is fasting.
Okay.
And we've seen in the research that fasting elongates telomeres, and telomeres are the caps on the DNA. And when we cut off a cap, when we run out of room, that's when we can no longer make new cells. And so longevity experts, and what are they called? The biohackers. That's right. The biohackers are always looking for what's the next biggest thing to help us live longer. And fasting is. And of course, when we're talking about like a menopausal woman or somebody who's pregnant, or somebody who struggles with blood sugar regulation, this may not be the right thing for you. But it sounds like for me and for you, as we're having this conversation, it can be really, really helpful. I feel so much better when I intermittent fast. I do my schedule a little differently because I think so much and burn so much calories during the day that I like get super excited. I eat at like 12 or 1, and then I stop eating by like 7 or 8. But really, I love that you're saying you're listening to your body. And so people are always like, well, what's the best diet for me? And the question's like, well, what does your body say? What makes you feel the best? Maybe it's the blood type diet. Maybe it's doing keto here and there. Maybe it's a carnivore diet. Maybe it's plant-based. Let's learn about your body. But what we do know is that by increasing probiotics and increasing fiber and antioxidants and whole foods, we do know that makes the body healthier. And the question is how much and when, I think.
Right, in this situation, yeah, because I'm looking back, and I think I have one big meal a day, and sometimes two, not two big ones, but one big one, and then maybe a smaller meal before 7 or 8 o'clock. I try to keep it, before it gets too late.
Yeah.
And that's usually been a great routine for me lately. I mean, again, I can't say I advise this to everyone, because I know, for example, my mother, she has high sugar, I guess. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but she needs to eat more constantly and maybe smaller portions to keep herself where she needs to be. So it's different for everyone. But for me, I think it's been great.
I love that. It's so good. You're gonna live a long time. Your telomeres are gonna be just bossing.
I hope so, God willing. And you use the phrase teaching the body safety. How do we actually do that? And I guess maybe we answered a little bit in listening to our body, but how else can we do that?
I think that the best way to do that is I'm kind of on a rampage against the good vibes only mentality. And I think a way to teach the body safety is to embrace all vibes welcome.
Okay.
And so we're designed to feel all of the things. We as a human race, we feel joy and we feel rage and we feel lust and fear and happiness and sadness, all of the things. And I think the meta awareness, the way that we feel about our feelings, is huge. It's key. So if I am in that good vibes only culture and I'm afraid of feeling the fear, or I'm afraid of feeling nauseated, or I'm afraid of feeling out of control, my lived experience in this body on this planet will be very different versus if I'm more perhaps Buddhist or Stoic is the word of I accept it all. I allow whatever is coming up for me to come up for me, and then I allow myself to release it. There's a book, it's called Wise Heart, and John Kabat-Zinn wrote this book, and he writes this exercise called the boats. And he teaches the meditation with the boats as you close your eyes and you imagine that you're sitting on a green grassy hill, and then in the distance is a beautiful river. And on the river, going from one side to the other side, are boats, and they're going down the river. And those boats represent thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, images, all of the things. And what he teaches is you notice those boats, you notice the one coming around the corner, you notice what comes up for you, you allow yourself to see it and experience it, and then you allow it to float away. And many of us have an impulse to perhaps blow up the boat, or maybe we want to jump on the boat and we want to lean into that chaos, like you were asking earlier, as we lean into chaos, right? And practicing and noticing our impulses and noticing where that came from and allowing it to inform us. But the less we attach to that and the more that we just allow it, the freedom that comes from that is indescribable. Okay. So Wise Heart, it's a really good book.
Nice. So the way I look at it is I have to be comfortable with whatever comes, but at that moment I do have to place it in the right place calmly and not with any anger or hatred or frustration, but it has to be put in the right place, almost like we interrogate where these things come from, you know? So it's not like they're okay because all of it works right. Meaning I take this even from Holy Scripture, Romans 8:28, for all works good for those who love God, in the sense that when we are in this giving spirit and we love and it all works for good, whether it's the good and the bad, you know what I mean? So it's like we can accept it all because without the bad, we don't know the good, and without, you know, it's a balance, right? And it's needed, all of it, whether, you know, suffering is what gives us maturity and growth, you know, death that allows us to value life. So like it all has this balance there. But I do agree that yes, they are all welcome to appear because they will appear, meaning in the sense we can't deny that things are just going to pop in our head or ideas or thoughts. But when they do, I do like to interrogate them before they kind of pass the level of, I'll explain it like before they grow roots, let's say, in my subconscious or in my heart. Before they root into me, they need to be interrogated and be like, okay, well, this is what I believe in. I'm going to keep this, and I feel this is good. But this, I see it there, and it's fine. But I'm going to, for example, let's say a complaint comes to my mind, you know, about life, anything. And then what I like to do is, yes, it's okay that it comes to my mind. I'm not upset at it. I mean, there's a reason behind it. But then I have to interrogate and say, why am I complaining? And then I have to then put it in I forgot the word there, but put it into the right place where now I replace, instead of a complaint, now I'm going to replace that thought with gratitude, let's say. You know what I mean? And so like I could say now, no, you know, that's fine, and these things will happen, and yes, maybe it is something that could bring up a complaint, but at the same time, you know, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to allow that to grow roots into me. I'm going to replace it with something like gratitude and say, you know, well, at least I'm happy, I'm alive, I have health, I can breathe, I can see, I can hear, and all these things. And the reason I say that is because to me, it's important to put it in the right place so that it balances properly with me, and I can continue to, I guess, stay on the path that I'm on. I say, you know.
I love that because you're taking it a step further than the story of the boats is you're noticing it, you're allowing it, and you're allowing it to inform you.
Mm-hmm.
You're being curious about it. And I really, really love that is allowing yourself to be curious. But then I think you were describing allowing yourself to then compartmentalize. Where does this go?
Yeah.
Is this something I want to keep? Is this something I want to integrate? Is this not mine and I need to let it go? What does this tell me? Perhaps I need to do some more work on. I really love that. You're allowing those boats to inform you. You're being curious.
Yeah, because if you let it grow root in the wrong place, it could be harmful.
Yeah.
You know, where if you just put it in the right place and then replace it with something that isn't harmful, that it's going to be edifying for you, let's say, or good for you, then you're on a path of growth, because that's growth. That is growth. You know what I mean? Growth is going through the negative and learning from it and then converting it to the positive, you know?
Yeah. Which is an antidote to avoiding, right? Is you could avoid and not pay attention, but you're expressing don't avoid it. Be curious about it, but do that under your own terms. And so sometimes, and I always like to tell my patients, is we can't all heal all the time. So if you're with your coworkers and you need to be present for your coworkers, but there's something coming up, is to allow yourself to notice that. But then I even do a visual exercise where I imagine taking that, put a golden bubble of light around it, and then setting that aside, and then remembering to come back to that and work on it later. So it allows us to kind of find that balance between doing that inner work of how our nervous system is informing us, but doing it from a place of power where we're not getting whiplash. It's sort of like we can have this conversation now, or I'm busy right now. We'll have it later, but I promise I'll come back to it.
Yeah, instead of like a demon, let's say in this metaphor, but appearing, you know what I mean? And then you're just like, oh, no, away from me. Yeah. Then you're more like, hey, what's up? What are you doing here? Like, talk to me, you know, like interrogate. Why are you here? You know what I mean? Why did you even appear? Like, let's say, and then you're learning from it, because all these things obviously come from something. There's something maybe you thought or a belief or an image or something you heard or something that was influenced or someone did. But just like you said earlier, like you can have these memories that if you just say forget it or kind of like put it under the rug, swipe it on the rug, it's only going to be harmful, because you can't do that. It's almost like you have to replace it because the space will be full. And so like if you just leave it there, it will stay there and it will take root and it will give you something you might not want. But if you take that and then convert it and interrogate it and put it in the right place, then it will produce something good for you, you know? Even
That's
if it's
brilliant. That's brilliant. I love that. I feel like if people get nothing else from this conversation, that's the thing that they get. I think that's really powerful.
Nice. All right, so let's start closing here with some practical tools. What natural remedies or supplements? I know we went over some of that that you find are supportive for anxiety. So we did mention the oils, right? The healthy oils, and different things like that. And so let's skip that one. Actually, what are one or two practices you personally use every day to stay panic proof?
I would say belly breathing and extending the exhale.
Okay.
And so our vagus nerve is activated when we belly breathe, and especially when we exhale. So the first sign of stress is just breathe out as much as you can, flatten your lungs of all the air, and then do a square breath from your belly where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, or longer if you can, hold at the bottom, and then repeat that. So that's a good habit.
Okay, great. And let's say, how do you see mental health care evolving as more integrative approaches become mainstream?
I think we're going to see a lot more asking why, which is going to guide us to more root-caused, nuanced care. And I think that's going to be largely grassroots. I think it's going to be people like you and your listeners who are asking for it.
Okay. I did want to integrate this a little bit. from your perspective, how does faith play a role in finding peace from anxiety and panic?
Yeah, I love that. We talked about it a little bit when we touched on the psychedelics and how for some people that's a tool to help them feel a greater sense of spirituality. But there's something called soul sickness where my body is healthy, my emotions, it's fine, but I just feel like in my soul, like this existential, perhaps, this philosophical, existential feeling of a lack of meaning or purpose in a greater picture. And I think when we say mind, body, spirit, that it's a three-legged stool, and that soul sickness could be a sign that perhaps our spiritual life needs a little bit of cultivating. And whether that's through prayer or meditation or something organized, whether it's a church or a group or something like that, but getting connected with something bigger than ourselves can often be absolutely life-changing.
Yeah. And to me, it really, because I went on a deep study when I got off of the Xanax and my mind came back and I could retain information, so it was great. So I started reading books like there was no tomorrow and started listening and receiving information instead of being sucked out. And I read a lot. I read Greek philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, all different types of religion, Judaism, Christianity, how the canonical Bibles were put together, and blah, blah, blah. But all of it, even a little bit of neuroscience and quantum mechanics. But what it did to me is it brought me back, ironically, back to Holy Scripture. I don't even say Bible because I do think Holy Scriptures can be different books as well in this. But it brought me back to that because, for example, like everything that we are talking about today, let's say, for example, can be even tried. I couldn't believe that it was already there in a lot of different ways. So, for example, like there's verses that say, don't be anxious about anything because you can't control that, kind of situation. That's a clear alignment of what we're speaking about with this kind of situation. Take every thought captive and submit it to this type of obedience. It's, for example, the Proverbs 23:7, for what a man thinks in his heart, so is he, helps us understand inner work and how that works with thought and action. And then you got Romans 12:2, don't be conformed to this kind of living and system, but be transformed by this renewing of the mind with truth. And so it just had so many different aspects. And to me, out of reading all of these different people, whether it was Buddha, Confucius, or philosophers, or any of those, Yeshua, to me, Jesus, was the only person that actually completed the whole, meaning, for example, he was the only one in history who ever said, love your enemy or forgive your enemy kind of thing, right? And it's like no one else ever said that, but it really does align to me anyways. It aligns to me, and it's very useful for me to find this purpose and alignment, like you were saying, with this, because it completes the full circle of wow, I used to see Jesus or this as so different, but now I see it more like this internal work that he's trying to show us inside, and then saying that this is the way that you can complete everything. Because I look at it this way, like if a person is angry at you and they're coming at you in such an angry way, right? The first thing we as humans tend to do is respond in a defensive way, right? We're defending ourselves, we feel attacked, and we want to defend ourselves. The problem with that is that when we do that, we end up going to the same level that they are. So let's say we're in a great mood and we're having a wonderful day, and they're in a horrible mood because they're having a bad day. As soon as we try to defend ourselves, we literally get to the same level that they're on, and now we're having a miserable day, and now it's ruining everything. So when I look at it like, okay, well, why then the explanation of why love your enemies and forgive them is because it starts to open up the idea of yes, physically I do see someone attacking me, but spiritually, or let's call it mentally, because it's something you don't see, right? They're actually going through something. They're stressed. They have anxiety. They're struggling at home. Maybe they got fired at work. Who knows what's going on? So the point is, now instead of you seeing someone attacking you, I can see it through those eyes of God, let's say, or in Scripture, that showed me that it's not them that's attacking you. It's their anxiety, it's their stress, it's their bad mood inside that is. So now I don't really hate them anymore. In fact, I can protect myself by seeing it for what it is, and then I can actually even try to help them or pray for them or be calm in that situation and keep myself in this, let's call it a higher vibration or in the spirit or however you want to call it, but you're in a peaceful, joyful mood where now their choices and their actions don't affect yours because you've kept it in the right perspective where you can see that they just need help. They don't need to be defended. And by doing so, you can maintain this balance of where we're at. So I just wanted to share that quickly. I know it's a little off that, but it has worked for me, and it's really helped me understand the inner workings of all of the things that are happening. People can call it spiritual too, but to me, it's inner work. It's inside of here. This is where our spiritual battle lies. And that has helped me a lot in this path to understand it. Because like I mentioned, I feel like understanding something really helps us accomplish it, let's say, you know? What are your thoughts on that?
That's the most powerful medicine. I mean, if we all had the access and the resources for that, I think by and large the medical profession would really be economically struggling because this what you're talking about. That's the stuff of life. That's the most interesting stuff, the most powerful stuff. You're bringing to mind, have you read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
No, but I will.
Yeah, he survived the Holocaust.
Okay.
And wrote this book about from having experienced one of the most horrific things any sort of human being could ever endure, and he has to find meaning in that. And I think that is one of the most influential books in some ways. What you're talking about is how do we become meaning makers? How do we find, like you said earlier, pain with purpose? How do we feel that connection to something bigger than ourselves? Is this really all that it is? And figuring out what your answer for that question is. And I think that changes us on a cellular level, on a quantum cellular level. And there's nothing I think that's more powerful than that. So I really admire and appreciate that you shared that and that you did that work and you're doing that work.
Yeah. No, and because it brought me full circle to understand that this is how, you know, I don't have to respond to people like that. You know what I mean? I could respond in different ways that protect me, but allow my protection to help them. So in a way, it's beautiful because I found a balance where I could really experience joy and peace, and not based on my external circumstances, but it's only based because of my internal circumstances. And but yeah, it's just a powerful tool that has transformed my life in the sense of just really cleaning myself from the inside out, you know, mentally, and I can call it spiritually as well, you know.
Do you have advice then for a daily practice, like if for people who feel at the end of their rope, they don't have a lot of time to do this kind of inner work, and maybe they've been burned by other spiritual peoples? Is there a small, easy, accessible practice or something that you would recommend?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say more of even a practice. It's more about making sure we don't look at spirituality as something external, you know, because I think the biggest issue is that we try to do it backwards. And basically it's us trying to do things externally to help our internal self. And it will never work that way. Nothing in nature ever actually works that way. We have to first look at spirituality as something internal and allow that truth to clean us from within. And then it solves all the external problems. Because at the end of the day, it's not really the external problems that affect us. It's our perspective on those external problems that affect us. It's how we look at them, how our belief, because a lie that's believed is true to you, you know, and it will affect you as if it were true. But it's just, to me, it's more about, yes, there is a leap of faith in anything we do. But once we go down this path, it starts to open up all of these things that we spoke about today, for example, like, because I never saw, Christ like that. I saw him as this external thing. We have to just believe in him and what he did, and that's it. But no. It's having his mind, actually. It's really just integrating everything he spoke about, like saying, for example, he would say, it's not just, I know it's been said in the law, because the law was almost like the beginning part where it would explain to us what we have to do and what's good and what's bad. But then when he came, he fulfilled it in the sense of saying, like, yes, that tells you how to do things, but I'm going to tell you how to think. And that solves the source of the problem. So he would say, I know it's been said, don't commit adultery, but I tell you that if you have lust in your mind over this, then you're already subject to judgment. So basically, I know it's been said, don't commit murder, but I tell you, if you have anger in your heart, in your mind, because the heart is your mind, then you are also subject to judgment. What he's telling us is the root of the problem. If we continue to just externally, from a standpoint of appearance, just act like we're good, and that's what religion is to me. Religion is just external. It's me giving this facade because I feel like I'm self-righteous or good, and really there's no transformation there. There's nothing. There is just nothing there. It's just meaningless. But if you have spirituality and if you have an encounter within your own, because the Bible is clear, the kingdom of God, seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and it all shall be added, which means the Holy Spirit that's inside of you, God that's inside of you, which is the kingdom of God, that produces the fruit of joy and peace. Look for that first inside of you, not outside. Don't go looking for a relic or something you feel you're going to go touch and it's going to heal you. It's not the way it works. God is already inside of you and inside of us. And if we can search within us and allow truth to replace the lies that have been put into us since birth and since the beginning of time, but if we can replace that with truth, then that will set us free. But it's not as easy as, I believe Jesus is or the Bible is true. It's applying that truth internally that changes us. Because if you apply truth externally, it does nothing. So it's like you can memorize the Bible, you can know all the scripture, you can do that and apply it externally, and it does nothing. But if you memorize the truth and Holy Scripture and you apply internally, that changes everything, because it changes our whole perspective and it allows us to live in a world where things will go bad. We will have problems. We will have up and downs. But now we learn to see the ups in our downs. And so it helps us grow and mature. And to me, it's almost like the whole reason we're here. The whole reason we're here, I look at it like from our body, we have trillions of blood cells. They all have to work and function in a homeostasis, in a balance, so we can live, so we can have a glass of water, so we can walk. The moment that any of those cells go against the body, and let's call it, they have their own ego, right? They don't want to die. Then they become the cancer that builds tumors and then kills the entire body in itself. But we are those organisms in this universe. We are like those cells, and we're here to learn, we're here to learn this balance of how we can live together, integrated, and move on. And this is the only way life can move on. And the people who want to do their own thing and the ego, and it's about me, and all these things, you become the cancer that has to be removed. And that's, to me, like just, simply put, like the purpose of life, of why we're here. We can't just go to the next level. We need to mature through this process so we can value things. Imagine if we all stayed as like teenagers for the rest of our lives without any kind of growth, and we live forever. We would think we're invincible and God, and it would just be a disaster, the disaster of a world. But because we have death, because we have suffering, because we have stress, because we have all of these other things, we actually mature and learn to value the things we have instead of just taking things for granted and just destroying everything.
My goodness, I'm glad you're writing a book, and I feel like we could talk for hours.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent for so long, but
I need to read your book. I'm like here for it. So yeah, I'm going to be waiting for that to come out, because I feel like you have so much brilliance. It's like bursting out of you, and I'm so glad that we're going to get that in writing. That we're going to get to read it.
Appreciate it. It's going to be called the Paradigm Paradox. I'm not sure like the actual, I'm going to have the main title, but this will be the subtitle because I know I want that there.
I love that.
All right, perfect. So let's finish off with, where was I? Okay. If listeners can take away, I know we spoke a little bit, but if listeners can take away just one of the one message from this episode that you spoke about, what do you hope it is?
Yeah, you can heal from anxiety. End of story.
Good. And that it's a signal and that it's just communicating with you. It's not,
Yes.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Now, is there anything you would like to share with anyone as far as where they can find your work and your book? And I know you were mentioning a little in the beginning, but just give them a little more info on yourself for that.
Thank you. I love to hang out with people on Instagram. We respond to every message. It's Dr. Nicole Cain. I wrote Panic Proof, and I would love if you get it and leave some words of encouragement. But also, if you want it for free, you can find it at the library. And I have a ton of free resources and a 9 types of anxiety quiz on my website, drnicolecain.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And anything else you would like to share before we end?
I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and your audience. I admire your work, and I can't wait to read the Paradigm Paradox and whatever its form is. So we need to stay in touch.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, and again, Dr. Cain, thank you for the incredible eye-opening conversation. I think that what stood out the most for me was that, and hopefully for listeners, is that panic isn't an enemy. It's information. It's your body asking for safety. And if you want to go deeper, as she mentioned, please go check out her book, Panic Proof. You can, as she mentioned also, it is free at the library, so you can get it there. And it's packed with science, stories, and strategies that you can start applying right away. We'll link everything also in the show notes, including her website and her podcast or anything she has, so that way everyone can keep learning from her. And just want to thank you. Thank you again for coming. And until next time, keep seeking truth. Thank you for joining us on the Truth Seekers Guide podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you can make it heaven, you can make it hell. The choice is yours.